Hi. So, what you're about to watch is almost a fictional podcast based off a little league I'm running called the F1 Winter League. It's based off the idea of the NBA Summer League, where a lot of young players and unproven talent compete in this almost NBA like competition that may eventually get a call up to the actual NBA, obviously. Same thing with this. The idea behind this would be that these would compete in this summer league and then maybe get a chance maybe the next year, or maybe even a late call up to F1, sort of something like that. We're running it in F1 23. And there's about six of us. And yeah, enjoy. This will just be me discussing uh, basically what's going on, and we're coming up to the finale, so that'll be basically the gist of the podcast. So enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the F1 League Winter League podcast, where this week we're previewing the season finale in Belgium. So for those of you who haven't been following the championship, let me just give you a quick recap on what basically happened. What's happened so far this season. So Super is the current championship leader. He won in Spain. However, is under some threat. Initially in Spain, we only had 4 drivers, one of who retired, his actual teammate in the Williams. And then in the second race in Portugal, we actually got 2 more people, which really made the competition quite a bit more difficult. Not only did Super have to race against one of the other drivers who had been quite competitive with him, Rach. Now he had Comfy and Arditeki, who have seemed to be just like one step ahead of him. So I do say the championship is still in Super's favor, or he is technically the championship leader. But tied on points is also Comfy, who has won Portugal and France. So race 2 and 3. And then we've got Arditeki, who's came second in Portugal and France, which has put him in third, only 4 points behind, 17 points compared to Super and Comfy. We're at 21 points. And currently there are 3 teams vying for the Constructors' Championship. Super and Trip have been racing the whole time, which is probably why they are in the lead of the Constructors' Championship. And following them, we've got Ferrari, who between the 2 drivers have missed 2 races, I think. Techie missed the first race. Rach has missed the most recent race. So they are trailing by about 6 points. Let me just confirm that. Yes, they are trailing by 6 points. Behind them, you've got Red Bull, Comfy, really leading the charge of them. And we also had a mid-season driver swap with Billy Billy coming from Aston Martin to join Red Bull. What was potentially supposed to be last week, but he also missed last week. So last week in France, we did have a bit of a smaller race. Again, Comfy came first, Techie second. Trip managed to get his first podium of the year with a third of the season, I should say. And Super came in fourth after a bit of a disappointing race. There was discussion between Super and Trip that perhaps Super should get the podium for that extra 2 points, which would have put him in a better spot for the championship, because currently Comfy is unstoppable. but the lack of pace meant that Tripp had no real option but to obviously go ahead of Super, and not ruin his own race. So, and then Rach and Billy missed. We also had one other person that did register to race, Minnie, but she has not participated in any of the race so far and just recently dropped out. So we are looking into a very historic tie in between the two championship leaders, first and second in championship. But we also, unlike 2021, which I won't get into because it's quite a controversial topic still, unlike the 2021 F1 season, we have a third person in the running, obviously Techie, with 17 points. Not out of contention. Something could happen with the first and second. So it's very interesting. And honestly, no one, even right now, even Tripp, Rach, and Billy are not out of the championship, but it would take a miracle for them to win. So that's what let's look at for now. Next race of the season finale is going to be in Belgium, which we are here to discuss. This was voted on as the favorite to get that finale race, so we are racing in Belgium. Interesting little race because Soup has mentioned, obviously, he hasn't done well recently, but Soup has mentioned that he feels confident about Spa. He feels confident that maybe a win's in sight for him. It's bold words coming from just how unstoppable Comfy has been in the gap that Comfy has in the two races he participated in. And obviously Techie is not too inexperienced himself. So it'll be interesting to see if he can win. Another thing that we are here to report on, this is not confirmed yet, but according to our latest knowledge, Rach is not participating in the final race of the season again. Obviously Miss France. This is I've been told this is due to very personal reasons. So unfortunately, Ferrari will have to go without their second driver 1 week running, unless they can replace it. But I don't think they will get a replacement. So it's got to be an interesting race. With obviously races like Portugal and France being quite difficult, and obviously drivers not having too much experience, but Spa might mix things up with it being a track that is more widely raced on. All of our drivers should be fairly experienced in on this track and already have a head start. So I think the interesting going into obviously this race is the championship will be decided, both the drivers and constructors championship. Despite even Ferrari not having the best time, with Techie missing one race and Rach missing one race, you would think this would be in the bag for Williams and even Red Bull, who really have been scoring the majority of their points with Comfy over the last 2 races. Billy obviously getting a podium because of the lack of drivers. The real big permutations we have for the Drivers' Championship is obviously we mentioned Super vs Comfy. One must beat the other. Whoever scores more points wins. It's as good as that. Fast slap is only 1 point, so they cannot beat each other by there, and the difference between second and first is 3 points, and so it goes down 3 points, so they really can't get any additional points from anywhere else. Whoever is in the high position at the end of the race will win the championship, unless, and we'll talk about that in a second. So you would think Comfy has the advantage going into this race, even though he did miss one race. He has just been very consistent in his back-to-back wins, and so far he has only one fast lap because Techie was fast. I believe he got that fast lap point from Portugal. Techie managed to just get the faster lap in Portugal, whereas Super also has one fast point already as well from Spain, where he did win that. Again, competition was a little lighter considering we were missing Comfy and Techie. No disrespect to other drivers, of course, but there's definitely been drivers that are in a league of their own throughout this season. But let's say both Super and Comfy, the other permutation for them, if Super and Comfy both DNF, Comfy would win the tiebreaker. Two firsts, 2 supers, 1. So far, Comfy has won the 2. Super has only won 1. Comfy would win on countback. Unless Techie has anything to say of that, of course, because Techie is still within striking distance. So that is for the tie. But for Techie to have any chance, if both Super and Comfy do finish, remember, Techie would only have to score 4th if Super and Comfy both DNF, which I think would be a very high possibility, considering it would only then, to our knowledge, be Techie, Trip, and Billy, and possibly even Rach. So if Super and Comfy both DNF, Techie cannot lose the championship unless he DNFs himself. But if he were to win the championship with both Super and Comfy still in the race, Techie would pretty much, honestly, at this point, nearly need to get a win and have neither Super or Comfy above 3rd. If either of them get 2nd, they beat Techie. The only way Techie could possibly win is with Super coming 2nd, but also him having the fast lap, because that would mean Super and Techie are tied on points, and on the countback, Techie would win 2 seconds to only Super's 1 in this circumstance. So that could be the same. However, if it was the same, and we're just we're just using our prediction model to predict the points. If Comfy and Techie were to tie on count back, Comfy would win with 2 firsts. So Techie, if Techie was to beat Comfy, he needs Comfy to come 3rd or lower. He can beat Super if Super comes first, 2nd, and he's 1st, but he needs the fast lap to tie on points and win on countback. So that's really Techie's main hope, is that Comfy can come no higher than 3rd. Techie can, if he wins the race, he can beat Super if he gets a fast lap, ties on points, wins on countback. Some other permutations would be, and let me just check. If Techie gets a 2nd, if Techie gets 2nd, he would again have to, he could beat Super again with, if Super comes 3rd, Techie 2nd, he can beat Super on countback again by getting a faster lap. So that fast lap would be really, really important for Techie, because the difference, obviously, between most of the points, a single position, is about 3 points. You go 4, and now you're tied. He can then again beat Super 2 seconds to 0 seconds, 2nd place. If Super came 3rd and 2nd, Comfy could again win. If Techie comes 2nd with fast lap, and then Comfy comes 3rd. So again, you're looking at, to really secure it without fast lap, Techie would have to come 2nd, and Comfy and Super 4th and 5th. This is with the current model of, obviously, Rach not racing, which we have to assume is the case at this point, unless we do get a surprise announcement. But of course, Rach can't challenge, so it's very unlikely she could really affect anything other than that extra, I believe it was 3 points, 3 or 1 points being available. We are still yet to know if Billy is participating in the last race after missing the last race. So that really is Techie's permutations here. If he really wants to win, he really needs that fast lap, or finish 2 positions ahead of both Super and Comfy. And he cannot win if he ties with Comfy on points, no matter what. Because of Comfy's 2 wins, which at this point only Super can tie. But that's the permutations for Techie. Again, he can afford to tie with Super. He cannot afford to tie with Comfy. As I mentioned, Trip, Rach, and Billy are still in this championship, despite Trip and Rach each having won a retirement. resulting in no points. And Billy, obviously missing a race, only managing a third as his best, and then coming fifth. A reminder that normal points would be 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. Not many on offer, whereas this race, because it is a standard race, will have more than that, and it will increase to 1.5 times the regular points. So they could still, but they would plausibly need the top 3 to DNF. If say 2 DNF, then that means one of the 3 will probably have enough points, even if they finish say 4th, to beat Trip, Rach, Billy. They would really need those top 3 to DNF for them to have a chance. Could be interesting. Because according to what we have here, Trip, for example, if he gets a third, could beat Techie in the standings, obviously coming third if Techie was to DNF. A second would be enough if Super Comfy and Techie did DNF. But the thing is, if Trip was to be first, that would probably mean that we would have either Billy or Rach in first. So again, Trip would need to get the fastest lap. Or again, possibly the fast lap is stolen by Techie. Now, we haven't got clarifications on the rule of if DNF people can, retirements can obtain the fastest lap, which would be something that we would need to clarify with the stewards. It has not happened before, but I'm sure we can get that information to you. So for, say, Trip to win, he needs a first. And then if the top 3 DNF, Super, Comfy, Techie. Rach, second, cannot. Even with fast lap, cannot get close enough to Trip. Same thing with Billy, cannot get close enough even with fast lap, even if that was second. So that is really mainly Trip's biggest chance of getting the championship if the top 3 do DNF. We've got Rach here. First would get her 23 points, which is enough to beat Trip. And even on countback, that would beat Trip. Again, we're thinking of a very, very, very off chance that something happens to the top 3, which is looking very, very low chance. It would be very surprising to see something happen like that. But then again, it could be a little bit reminiscent of the 2021 championship. Not trying to be any conspiracy theories, but yeah. And same thing with Billy, of course. He would, if he were to come first, he would beat Trip by 1 point. However, if Trip did get the fastest lap, he would then tie with Billy, But because Tripp would have not won a race, Billy would win that countback. So an interesting thing to think about. Obviously, Billy, even probably the weakest link in the championship, who has done a very good job, might I say, for being such inexperienced, has managed to be the only one out of the bottom three in the standings who hasn't retired, but he has obviously missed that race. So maybe you count that as a retirement, a DNS. So we have that. And of course, Minnie cannot win the championship, even if she arrived in Belgium, won, and everybody else DNF'd. But if that were to be the case, Minnie would get fourth in the standings, which would be pretty good for only appearing in one race. But I do believe she will not be able to return, even if she wanted to. But there could be a last minute exception made. We are not aware. The assumption is that Minnie is completely out of the championship, and she would not be able to rejoin until the next season. And the other big thing I think that's a little bit more interesting than the Drivers' Championship is the Constructors' Championship, because I said Williams, despite attending every race and doing somewhat well, obviously Red Bull only had two drivers, Red Bull had no drivers in Spain, one driver in Portugal, one driver in France, and they may even have only one driver in Belgium. We are yet to see. Despite that, they are still in the championship. Okay, so the biggest thing we obviously have to look at is Williams with Super and Tripp. Currently in the championship lead, 6 points ahead of Ferrari with 31 points. Simply, they just must outscore. They must get more points than Ferrari and Red Bull. So there's a few permutations, really. One of the things is that a third and fourth with no DNFs, with two Ferraris or two Red Bulls, would almost not be enough. Unless we look at the other positions that are available. A first and a fifth might not be enough. First and fifth might not be enough to beat Williams with a third and fourth. But regardless, a third and fourth could be a little scary for Williams in terms of, will that even be enough? Obviously, it would depend on where the other teams finish. But yeah, any higher than that, Williams should any more points than that, should win Williams the Constructors' Championship. Then that's pretty clear cut. Williams are in the championship, in the Constructors' Championship lead by a good margin. It will take a lot to beat them. So then we look at Ferrari, obviously, with the news that Rach may not be driving in Spa, and our assumption is she won't. Techie would have to take Ferrari to the constructors alone. Now, so really, in the case that Techie is the only one driving for Ferrari, there'll be only one possibility for him to win if the maths is correct. Techie would have to win with Williams 4 and 5 tied, which would put Ferrari and Williams tied on points. However, that would mean Ferrari wins on countback because they have 3 seconds, and even more. 3 seconds to no seconds for Williams. Again, Williams has either came first or a third. That is the high. They've got 2/3, 1 win, but no seconds. So that would be enough for Techie alone to carry Ferrari to the win. Again, the permutations would be a little different. We have not calculated that because the most probable outcome at this point in time is that Race does not race. But it would be an interesting, very interesting surprise if she did participate in this final race after she said she wouldn't. So we look to see more news for that. That is really the only permutation where Techie alone carries Ferrari to the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull, little different. We are not certain if Billy will be participating in this week, as he did miss one. There may be possibly a strain on his willingness to compete. But if he does, Red Bull are honestly somewhat in a decent position. Or not super decent, but it's plausible. It's honestly plausible for Red Bull to take the Drivers' Championship, the Constructors' Championship, and you already think Comfy is in a good spot to win the Drivers' Championship, just based off the approximate skill of Super versus Comfy. So Red Bull could still take a double championship. First and second, Williams would not be able to beat that. So the best Williams could do would be a third and fourth. Would not be enough points to as Red Bull is currently only 11 points behind, 20 points, 11. The first and second would be enough to lift themselves out of the current deficit and beat Williams. First and third, another plausibility. Would mean that Williams would need to get second and fourth. So in this scenario, we're probably looking at Comfy first, Billy third, which would be quite surprising. But anything could happen. Anything could happen to, or in this example, probably more Techie and Trip. For this to happen. Now let's look at another one, another slightly bigger possibility that would really have to depend on Billy's performance. 1 and 4, there would have to be one of the Williams would have to DNF. We've already seen Trip DNF, so there's a possibility of that. And Super did come dangerously close to that as well last weekend. Obviously managed to keep on track, keep out of people's way, but it was almost nearly a mechanical DNF for him, as he was struggling a little with the car. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. And then combined with that, the other Williams would have to be no higher than third. Super currently has come third and fourth, so you might even think he may be versus Comfy and Turkey. He might not be able to beat them. And obviously, if Billy, if Rach is not racing, Billy would come fourth, but that would be the minimum he could do. So it is a possibility Red Bull could win on that. On that grounds, again, Billy would have to race. In most circumstances, Billy would have to race for Red Bull to have a chance. At the constructors, it's still possible for Red Bull to win it with Comfy by himself. But there would definitely have to be a DNF and maybe a low result from the other Williams. And in fact, possibly, very possibly, it could even be that he would need, actually, no. A DNF, no. Okay, so Comfy would not be able to win. If there was a Williams DNF, that would mean 6 points. 6 points. Yeah, 6 points. 15 points would mean Super gains 9 points to, and which would be not enough points to cut down that 11-point deficit. The only way Red Bull potentially wins, in the case of Ferrari obviously not doing too well either, is both Williams DNF, if it is just him. So this Constructors' Championship will very much depend on both drivers being in there. Otherwise, there is obviously Williams just runs away with it. That's really the thing I can think of in this championship season finale decider. It'll be interesting to see how the races go, and some interesting number crunching for definitely, because the possibilities are wide open for both the Drivers and Constructors Championship. But yes, some key things to think about. Rach potentially not racing in Spa. That has been the latest update. And Billy maybe being uncertain. Both of them will take a hit to Ferrari and Red Bull. But so far we have had Super, Comfy, Techie, and Trip all state they will be there for this season finale. And the plan here has been that if one of them will not be able to attend, it will be postponed. The race will be postponed due to the difficulties of hosting this event. The race organizers are making exceptions to facilitate the drivers. And again, Rach has mentioned just go on without us, and Billy just go on without me. And Billy, again, if that's his decision not to race in Spa, then that is his decision. If it's due to unavailability in the unavailability in the aforementioned 4 drivers we mentioned previously, it will be postponed. However, so at the bare minimum for this Spa, we will have those 4 drivers, each with their chance of either winning the Drivers' Championship or really contributing to the Constructors' Championship. Again, Williams, even if, for example, Tripp has a lower chance of Drivers' Constructors' Championship, a biggest focus from what we've heard from him is that he is willing to push Williams just that one step further to the Drivers' Championship, the Constructors' Championship, because it is within reach for him and Super. Whereas now Comfy, Techie, and Super all have a chance at the Drivers' Championship, even if it might be a little less likely for Techie and to an extent Super, just based on the recent trends. But we are definitely heading into a historic season finale. 2 drivers tied on points, with the third just or nearly within reach too. And still a very interesting Constructors' Championship as well, as long as the 2 Williams, do not dominate this race. If either Ferrari or Red Bull are missing a driver, that might be enough to guarantee Williams the Constructors' Championship. So it should be interesting to see, can Williams steal both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship? Can Red Bull do the same, as unlikely as it might be? And can Ferrari really be carried to at least the Constructors' Championship, with Techie having to ride solo this race? But with that being said, I think that's it for our race preview. We look forward to the race, and we will be back after the race with a race review to wrap up the championship and look forward to future seasons. Take care, and we will be back for that. Probably next week.